Hi guys, good day and welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, you're welcome. My name is Oluwatosin and this is So with Tosin. To all my returning subscribers, thank you so much for always coming back to watch my videos. I greatly appreciate it and I don't take it for granted. Guys, in today's tutorial, we are going to be learning how to cut the perfect pants trouser with this exact crepe material. You're going to be learning how to cut the perfect trouser, the trouser that gives the perfect fit. So if you're ready, come along with me. So guys, firstly I want to thank everyone that's found my channel worthy to subscribe to. Thank you so much. Like, you guys don't know what you do for me. I see your comments, I see your likes. Thank you a lot. I don't take it for granted. So moving ahead guys, we are going to be working with this crepe fabric, and then you need to understand that to cut pants or trouser of any kind, be it long and short, the basic measurements you need to measure on the person you are sewing it for is the full length, and then the crouch for the front and the back, then the tie for, if it's a long pant like this one we'll be learning today, you measure the tie and then somewhere around the nail, and then if it's going to be fitted or pencil or straight cut or boot cut, you just have to have the knowledge of how wide you want the leg side to be, and then you also need the waist measurement and then the hip. So guys, I get a lot of questions, as in people asking me even in person, like, how do I even start? Where do I start from? How do I know the quantity of fabric I need to cut this particular style? I'm going to be explaining all of it in this video. So to cut a pants like this, all you need to do is, we can actually fold for the front and the back panel at the same time, but because I want this video to be absolutely beginner friendly, like I want everybody to understand this video, so I'm just going to divide the hip by 2, and then I'll be adding 10 inches allowance for the front panel, and I'll go ahead to fold that into 2. That is what I did now. You know, sometimes when you are folding, especially for fabrics that are not stable like crepe and net and all of that, your hand can shake. So I'll just go ahead to remeasure. Now I measured the hip divided by 2, divided by 4. I checked if I have allowance for sewing and then allowance for extending the crouch. Then I discovered that that was okay. The next thing is to measure the length. This pant is going to have band that is 2 inches wide, so I'll just put my band up. I'll make it invisible just like I did. Then I'll measure length, then add 3 inches allowance. Guys, this person's actual trouser length is 37, but because she wants it to cover the footwear just as it is in the picture, that's why I'm using 40. Then I'm adding 3 inches allowance. Whenever you are cutting trouser, please, whether long or short, add 3 inches allowance to the length, because you're going to be folding it down big. Then I'll go ahead to cut that out. That point that I connected into a straight line will now be my starting point. So moving ahead, I'm still going to put the 2 inches band up. Then I'll measure a crouch for the back. I'll be considering back crouch, which is 14. I'll put a mark at that point, and I'll connect it into a straight line, guys. Then on that crouch, on that point where I marked the crouch, I'll go ahead to measure our hip. You know, our hip is 36 divided by 4 gives me 9. Then I'll measure 1.5 inch sewing allowance. Then I'll still go ahead to measure 2 inches allowance for extending the crouch. Guys, anytime I'm cutting trouser for hip that is above 37, I use 2.5 inches for extending the crouch, but lesser than 37 and the person is an adult, I use 2 inches. So the next thing is just to the sewing allowance, connecting it to a straight line upward, just like I'm doing in the video. Then you start measuring the waist. Our waist is 25. I'll go ahead to divide it by 4. Sorry, our waist is 26. I'll go ahead to divide it by 4. Then I'll be adding 1.5 inch sewing allowance. The next thing is to measure a tie. A tie in this case will be divided by 2. Tie is always divided by 2, but other measurements is always divided by 4. So a tie divided by 2 is a tie is 24, divided by 2 is 12. I added 1 inch allowance at that part. Then I'll come to the new length. I just have to know the new length. What I do is, from the crouch, I use 12 inches for the new length, and it works perfectly for me. So at that point I'll be measuring at thigh, which is 19 divided by 2. Then I'll add 1.5 inch sewing allowance. Then down the whole length of the trouser, I'll measure 17, which is the round, the leg round, and then I'll divide it by 2, which is 8.5. I'll add 1 inch sewing allowance. Then the next thing is to extend the crouch. You can use your free hand to extend the crouch. I just decided to use my curved ruler. So at this point, the next thing is to connect all my allowances together. I'll connect allowance from the waistline to the hip line. Then I'll go ahead to connect all the 3 allowances, like the 3 thigh measurements together. Guys, is the allowance we are connecting together, not the actual measurement. So just join it together as I'm doing in the video. Is that simple? After connecting all of them together, just go ahead to like cut it out. So after cutting it out, guys, this is what I have. I'm just putting that mark there so that I'll be able to identify the wrong side of the fabric with ease when I get to my sewing machine, so that I don't strain my eyes too much when I'm ready to sew. So the next thing is I'm going to be marking my dart. Because our waist is 26, I'll be using 7 for a dart. So I'll be marking 3.5. Any waist above 27, 28, you should use 4. You should use 4 as your dart allowance. So I marked 7 in our case, 3.5, and then the length of the dart is 4. So I'm just going to put a mark at that point. The dart is going to be half inch. I'll just hold half inch on both sides, or better still, I can just put a notch at that point for easy identification. So guys, that is it basically for the front panel. So we are going to be using this front panel to cut the back panel, and all I did was exact measurement plus additional 4 inches allowance. After folding into 2, that makes it additional 2 inches allowance. So I added 2 inches allowance. Guys, if you are cutting for hip that is like above 38, you should use 2.5 inch allowance. Any hip that is above like 48, 50, you should use 3. But because our hip is 36, I'll be using 2 inches allowance. I call it bum allowance. That is what I call it, guys. So I'll be adding 2 inches. A lot of people add the allowance to the front. That part my hand is touching. Some people add the allowance to the front, but I love to add the allowance to the shaping side, this side, and it works perfectly fine for me. So I'm just going to be adding that 2 inches allowance. And then you see this 2 inches allowance, the main place we need it is around the butt, like where the butt is gone, the butt region. So in every other place, I'm just going to reduce the 2 inches allowance, but I'm going to leave it at 2 at the butt region. So on the waistline, I'll be using 1.5 inch. Just mark it the way I'm marking it. So I'll be reducing it gradually, but I'll leave it at 2 at the butt region. Then towards the leg, I'll go ahead to reduce it also. I'll use 1 inch at this point. I'll be going upward. I'll be using 1 inch. As I'm approaching the butt side, I'll be using 1.5 inch. Then till I'll connect it to the 2 inches back. So after marking like that, I'll just go ahead to cut it out basically, and that is it for that side. So guys, after cutting it out, I'll go ahead to put a notch at the, like I'm going to notch the dart just as I did for the front panel. I'll notch the dart. So guys, you remember that the crouch for the front is 12 and then the crouch for the back is 14. So I'll go downward with 2 inches on the front panel, and then I'm going to like crop it, just chalk it, like put a mark on that part the way I just did, and then go ahead to cut it out. So after cutting it out, I'm going to like re-notch the dart allowance. I'm going to re-notch that part where I'm going to hold the dart, and in this case now for the front piece, the dart is going to be 2 inches long because 2 inches is gone already. So guys, basically we are almost done cutting. So the next is that to avoid excess fold that is always at the front of some trousers, like if you see some trousers at the front, there's going to be like, it's going to be packing up kind of. So to avoid that, for the front piece, I'm going to reduce it with 1/2 inch. So I'll just reduce it with 1/2 inch around the crouch area, and then I'll go ahead to cut out that half inch just as I'm doing in the video. This arc really helps a lot to avoid excess bulge at the front of your trouser. So the next thing is to cut the band, and I love to cut my band after shaping so that I can remeasure where the band is entering before cutting, so I'll know the exact measurement I'm cutting for the band. And that is going to be in my next video, because in my next video I'm going to be talking on how I sew these pants, because there are still some techniques to apply when sewing pants. So just watch out for my next video. I'll see you in my next video. Bye bye.